Hello, my little Luxes. This is another episode of Luxxxy Charms, and I am your host, cosplayer Charsie Lux. And today is going to be a special episode on ghost stories my father used to tell me. And why is this going to be a special episode? Well, one, it is along the It is along the theme of Hey There, Little Red Riding Hood. So I am dressed as Little Red Riding Hood. What could be more fun than that? But also, for today's ghost story, I'm going to be talking about the old Brothers Grimm dark tale of the original Little Red Riding Hood. This thing's probably messing up again because it's overheating. That's its problem, it's overheating. But if I turn on the other fan, it's gonna be too loud. So, just gonna have to deal with it. But anyway, kind of the original story started with Little Red Riding Hood from Brothers Grimm back in the 17th century. It was originally called Little Red Cap, but adaptations and changes over the years, translations would also change it as well. Little Red Cap became Red Riding Hood, so then we got Little Red Riding Hood. I mean, the history and everything that goes along with, hey, I got a hood on today, guess what's gonna happen several times. Anyway, so with the adaptations and changes and the history that could go along with Red Riding Hood, because like I said, this originally came from the 17th century, but I thought it would be fun for me to read off one of the originals. I mean, from the copy that I have, I'm going to be reading from the book online, and we will go from there. So I hope you will enjoy the old adaptation. I think that's the right word. The old original version of the Brothers Grimm of Little Red Cap. Once upon a time, there was a dear little girl who was loved by everyone who looked at her, but most of all by her grandmother. And there was nothing that she would not have given to the child. Once she gave her a little cap of red velvet, which suited her so well that she would never wear anything else, so she was always called Little Red Cap. One day, her mother said to her, "Come, Little Red Cap, here's a piece of cake and a bottle of wine. Take them to your grandmother. She is ill and weak, and they will do her good." I don't know what generation that would have. I mean, that was the 17th century, but cake and wine when you're sick? I can get on board with that. If I'm sick, someone bring me some cake and wine. Set out before it gets hot, and when you are going, walk nicely and quietly and do not run off the path, or you may fall and break the bottle, and then your grandmother will get nothing. And when you go into her room, don't forget to say, "Good morning," and don't peep into every corner before you do it. "I will take great care," said Little Red Cap to her mother, and gave her hand on it. The grandmother lived out in the wood, half a league from the village, and just as Little Red Cap entered the wood, a wolf met her. Red Cap did not know what a wicked creature he was, and was not at all afraid of him. "Good day, Little Red Cap," said he. "Thank you kindly, wolf." "Whither away so early, Little Red Cap?" "To my grandmother's." "What have you got in your apron?" "Cake and wine. Yesterday was baking day, so poor sick grandmother is to have something good to make her stronger." Wine and cake makes you stronger. That's old advice. "Where does your grandmother live, Little Red Cap?" "A good quarter of a league farther on in the wood. Her house stands under the 3 large oak trees. The nut trees are just below. You surely know it," replied Little Red Cap. The wolf thought to himself, What a tender young creature! What a nice plump mouthful! She will be better to eat than the old woman. I must act craftily, so as to catch both." So he walked for a short time by the side of Little Red Cap. And then he said, "See, Little Red Cap, how pretty the flowers are about here. Why do you not look round? I believe, too, that you do not hear how sweetly the little birds are singing. You walk bravely along as you were going to school, while everything else out here in the wood is merry." Little Red Cap raised her eyes, and when she saw the sunbeams dancing here and there through the trees and pretty flowers growing everywhere, she thought, "Suppose I take grandmother a fresh nosegay that would please her too. It is so early in the day that I shall still get there in good time." And so she ran from the path into the wood to look for flowers. And whenever she had picked one, she fancied that she saw a still prettier one farther away, and ran after it, and so got deeper and deeper into the wood. Meanwhile, the wolf ran straight to grandmother's house and knocked at the door. "Who is there?" "Little Red Cap," replied the wolf. "She is bringing cake and wine. Open the door." "Lift the latch," called out the grandmother. "I am too weak and cannot get up." The wolf lifted the latch. The door sprang open, and without saying a word, he went straight to the grandmother's bed and devoured her. Then he put on her clothes, dressed himself in her cap, laid himself in bed, and drew the curtains. Little Red Cap, however, had been running around picking flowers, and when she had gathered so many that she could carry no more, she remembered her grandmother and set out on the way to her. She was surprised to find the cottage door standing open, and when she went into the room, she had such a strange feeling that she said to herself, "Oh dear, how uneasy I feel today. And at other times, I like being with grandmother so much." She called out, "Good morning," but received no answer. So she went to the bed and drew back the curtains. There lay her grandmother, with her cap pulled far over her face and looking very strange. "Oh, grandmother," she said, "what big ears you have." "The better to hear you with, my child," was the reply. "But grandmother, what big eyes you have," she said. "The better to see you with, my dear." "But grandmother, what large hands you have." "The better to hug you with." "Oh, but grandmother, what a terrible big mouth you have." "The better to eat you with." And scarcely had the wolf said this, then with one bound he was out of bed and swallowed up Red Cap. When the wolf had appeased his appetite, he lay down again in the bed, fell asleep, and began to snore very loud. The huntsman was just passing the house and thought to himself, "How the old woman is snoring. I must just see if she wants anything." So he went into the room, and when he came to the bed, he saw that the wolf was lying in it. "Do I find you here, you old sinner?" said he. "I have long sought you." Then just as he was going to fire at him, it occurred to him that the wolf might have devoured the grandmother, and that she might still be saved, so he did not fire, but took a pair of scissors and began to cut open the stomach of the sleeping wolf. Not sure how this didn't wake Mr. Wolf, but apparently he was very sated. When he had made 2 snips, he saw the little red cap shining, and then he made 2 snips more, and the little girl sprang out crying, "Oh, how frightened I have been! How dark it was inside the wolf!" And after that, the aged grandmother came out alive also, but scarcely able to breathe. Red Cap, however, quickly fetched great stones, with which they filled the wolf's belly, and when he awoke, he wanted to run away. But the stones were so heavy that he collapsed at once and fell dead. Then all 3 were delighted. The huntsman drew off the wolf's skin and went home with it. The grandmother ate the cake and drank the wine, which Red Cap had brought, and revived. But Red Cap thought to herself, "As long as I live, I will never by myself leave the path to run into the wood when my mother has forbidden me to do so." It is also related that once when Red Cap was again taking cakes to the old grandmother, another wolf spoke to her, and tried to entice her from the path. Red Cap, however, was on her guard and went straight forward on her way and told her grandmother that she had met the wolf and that he had said good morning to her, but with such a wicked look in his eyes that if they had not been on the public road, she was certain he would have eaten her up. Well, said the grandmother, we will shut the door that he may not come in. Soon afterwards, the wolf knocked and cried, open the door, grandmother, I am Little Red Cap, and am bringing you some cakes. But they did not speak or open the door, so the gray beard stole twice and thrice round the house, and at last jumped on the roof, intending to wait until Red Cap went home in the evening, and then to steal after her and devour her in the darkness. But the grandmother saw what was in his thoughts. In front of the house was a great stone trough. So she said to the child, take the pail, Red Cap. I made some sausages yesterday to carry the water in which I boiled them to the trough. Red Cap carried until the great trough was quite full. Then the smell of the sausages reached the wolf. He sniffed and peeped down, and at last stretched out his neck so far that he could no longer keep his footing and began to slip, and slipped down from the roof straight into the great trough and was drowned. But Red Cap went joyously home, and no one ever did anything to harm her again. Well, my little Luxes, I really hope you enjoyed that story. And like I said, it's technically Little Red Riding Hood, but back when it was in the story for Brothers Grimm, because it's an adaptation of Charles Perrault's original version of Little Red Cap, they also called it Little Red Cap. But over time, over the years, it just, through different translations, the name changed, but the whole idea is still the same. And basically the main moral to the story, kind of my hubby and I had reflected on it on the movie review when we talked about Red Riding Hood, was that the old original stories were there to be morals, that they were there to give you life advice. Usually from scaring the crap out of you, but in this one's case it was don't talk to strangers. People go a little more into depth with it over time, over the years, but the main focus for Little Red Cap was the idea of don't speak to strangers, because if you talk to strangers, something bad could happen to you. And obviously to this day, we know how popular the story of Little Red Riding Hood is. I mean, obviously, I am sitting here today in a Little Red Riding Hood cosplay, and my theme is revolved around her this entire month for Hey There, Little Red Riding Hood. But I have always been fascinated with this story. I even grew up with the original one, so it is very fitting for me to say ghost stories my father used to tell me, because my dad did tell us the original Brothers Grimm version. And there was even a cartoon. I'm not kidding. There was a cartoon that was the original story from the Brothers Grimm. Now, mind you, they even said that the Brothers Grimm's version is actually more lighthearted than the version from Charles Perrault, because his version, it didn't have a happy ending, whereas in the Brothers Grimm version, as dark as it is dark. We know it's dark compared to what the adaptations have changed it into now, and that, you know, it's a happier version, lighthearted, whereas in the Brothers Grimm version that I read to you, that Red Riding Hood, or Little Red Cap, and her grandmother are saved by the huntsman, the axeman, and that they get to be on top, and she learns a valuable life lesson, and they have to reiterate it by bringing in this ending part where they bring in the second wolf, and that Little Red Cap isn't tricked by this wolf. She's not eaten by him, and in fact, her and her grandmother trick him, and obviously it's still a dark tale. Both the wolves end up dead in this story. And like I said, I would be interested in finding the Charles Perrault original version. I may have seen that or read that in some version. Oh, and I was originally talking about the cartoon. So anyway, so my grandmother had a cartoon of the Brothers Grimm's version of this, and I can still, as many years ago as I have seen, as many years as it has been since I saw that cartoon, I can still remember them stitching the wolf back up with all these stones in his belly. I can still picture that and remembering it. When the axeman cut open the wolf, saved the little girl and her grandma, and I can remember them stitching up his belly, and this wolf, when he wakes up, goes to leave, and he has to literally carry his gut that's full of stones. And I think in that cartoon version, he goes to get a drink of water and he falls in a well or something. I don't know. Does somebody else remember this cartoon? Because this would have been years ago, and it was one that my grandma had. She probably still has it. I probably could ask her. I'm not kidding. She probably still has it in the box, probably underneath her end table right next to her TV. I'll have to ask her. And does anybody else remember this cartoon? I mean, it's probably why I love horror. I was petrified of those kind of things as a kid, but also fascinated by it. But yeah, there were a couple of things that I had even forgot to mention when I was talking about my review for Red Riding Hood, and that in one of the scenes, because, you know, it's a retelling of Little Red Cap, Little Red Riding Hood for Red Riding Hood, that when they kill the werewolf finally, that they do fill the werewolf's belly with stones and have them sink to the bottom of a river. So it kind of was a nice retelling of the old story and mixing it in with that one. So I do appreciate kind of like how closely they did tie them together, and that it was a nice dark tale. But I hope you all enjoyed that retelling of Little Red Cap. Let me know if you've heard that story before yourself, or this is the first time you're hearing the original one, well, kind of the original one, of the original Brothers Grimm of Little Red Cap. As always, I want to thank you for joining me here on another ghost stories my father used to tell me, since he did have fun telling us this one. And if you are new to my channel, please don't forget to like and subscribe, leave a comment, say hi, come join the Luxxxy family. But if you'd also be interested in following me on my other social medias, I have a Twitter for Charsie Lux with 3 X's, an Instagram under Charsie87, and another YouTube channel that I do with my friend DC called Little Channel of Horrors. And as always, I hope you enjoy the rest of your day, the rest of your afternoon, the rest of your evening, the rest of your night, whatever time of the day it is. I hope you have a good one. Bye! I'm too far from the camera to cover it. So, bye! Nosuke? Nosuke? I am not sure how to pronounce that one. Then he put on her clothes, dressed himself in her cap, laid himself in bed. When the wolf... I will never by myself leave the path to run into the wood when my grandmother has forbidden me to do so. Grandmother. Another wolf's... And if I can talk, as we've all known, I cannot keep a hood, a hat, a cap, anything straight on my head. I can't